Welcome back to the Home Depot's Indoor Houseplant series. Today we're focusing on taking care of Pilea plants to bring fabulous foliage and exotic textures into your home. The Pilea plant is a large plant family from the tropical and subtropical regions of the earth. There are many diverse members, and as you can see, they have very unusual and distinctive foliage. Pilea plants are also low maintenance and they're easy to propagate. Equally interesting are the common names for these indoor plant favorites. You have the aluminum plant, one of my favorites, also known as the watermelon pilea. You have the moon valley with its little craters. It's sometimes called the friendship plant. You have the grandifolia, the artillery fern, and the very popular Pilea peperomioides. It's also known as the sharing plant, the Chinese money plant, the pancake plant, the UFO plant, and the missionary plant. Taking care of the Pilea plants as a general rule is fairly easy. You want to make sure there's proper drainage. Let's just check with this one. I love this moon valley because it's got these beautiful craters. You want to make sure the pot has adequate drainage. Make sure that the plant is in a good soil, an indoor potting mix, no bark in it. Bark brings on fungus gnats, so you definitely don't want to have that. Additionally, you want to make sure it's properly watered. I'm going to stick my finger in. And as I pull it out, there's just a little bit of dirt. If you find that there's still soil that's attached, then it's fairly moist. If I had a lot of soil on my finger, I would definitely double check and make sure it's not sitting in standing water. If you insert your finger into a pot, such as this one, and it comes out really dry, then you know this plant needs water. What I like to do is make sure the plant is thoroughly watered. If your plant is really dry like this one's been, just watering like that won't really do a lot because the soil is still pretty dry. I recommend letting it sit for a few minutes, watering again. You've got to break that top soil apart, make sure all the soil is moist, and make sure all the water goes through. Another thing to do is to sit it in a bowl of water for just a few minutes and then let the water absorb from the bottom up. And again, whenever you're ready to put the plant back into its home, make sure that it's fully drained. Another important factor to consider when taking care of your pileas is making sure it has the proper nutrition. You've got a lot of variety as far as what type of fertilizers you can use for your plant. Starting with the spikes, you can actually stick one little spike into one pot and it'll last for a series of several months. Every time you water the plant, a little bit of the spike will dissolve and provide the nutrition that the plant needs. Another option to use is actually using a pump spray. All you do is take the pump and put a squirt on the edge of the pot, not directly onto the plant, but right at the edge, and then water it in. That will provide the fertilizer that the plant needs. If you have a lot of plants and you're changing the soil or refreshing it every year or so, you might want to consider adding a product that's called a granular or shake and feed. You can actually mix this into the soil of the plant. Then every time you water the plant, the granules will dissolve and your plant will be fertilized. Another option is the water-soluble fertilizer. These can be mixed individually or they come in singles, which can be used in a gallon container. You mix them up, you go ahead and water the plant. I recommend using a half-strength fertilizer, following the back of the package, every other time that you water. This is best for indoor plants during the full season, spring to summer. During fall and winter, you want to back off fertilizing because your plant will have a tendency to grow slower, and you don't want to over-fertilize during a slower growing spell. In addition to making sure that your plant is properly watered and has just the right amount of moisture, you'll need to make sure it has the right amount of light. Different Pilea plants may have different light requirements. As a general rule, you always want to follow what's on the tag. Now this one says low light. That doesn't mean no light. If your plant does not have sufficient light, the little stems are going to grow out and your plant will get quite leggy. It will look very unattractive. So you always want to make sure you follow the plant instructions. Whatever the tag says, make sure you have that for the plant. Your plant will look better, it'll be better, you'll be happier, the plant will be happier, and all will be well. In addition to light, you want to check the humidity around your plant. Plants like to be around 40 to 50% humidity, so if you find your humidity is very low in your home and you don't have a humidifier, you want to just lightly spritz the plant to increase the local humidity, and they will love you for it. Another important tip whenever you water your plants is to check it. Look over the leaves, look under the leaves. You're going to be checking for any kind of pests. You want to check for aphids, spider mites, scale, mealybugs, and possibly even a fungus. Some things to look for are possibly little insects. You may find white little dots, or sometimes what looks like spider webs. Sometimes with a fungus, you may see fungus gnats coming up, and those are little flies, little black flies or little white flies. If you do find a plant that has some sort of an infestation, you immediately want to quarantine the plant and treat it for the appropriate conditions. You also want to check the plants that it was close to make sure that they've not been cross-contaminated or infected. Once you've identified what is attacking your plant, you want to make sure you use the proper products. Some products will cover a multitude of situations. Some fungicides may also have insecticide materials in them, so you'll be able to protect the plant in multiple ways. As I mentioned, Pilea plants are really easy to propagate. All you need is a good pair of pliers or shears, some soil, and I recommend using a rubbing alcohol solution to disinfect your blades before cutting each plant, because you don't want to cross-contaminate any of your plants. So first of all, I'm going to just spray these down and wipe them. And now here we go. On this beautiful moon valley, I'm going to go ahead and just cut a stem. I'm going to stick it into some potting media. I'm going to water it gently, wait a few weeks, and we should have a new plant rooting. On the aluminum plant, and again remember, we always want to disinfect between cuttings, I'm going to do the same thing. Now this plant has some very large leaves. I'm only going to keep the top portion, so I'm going to trim those off. And again, put it in soil and gently water. Last but not least, I'm going to try this artillery plant. And again, disinfect and trim. And like the last plant, we have a few extra cuttings here. I'm just going to take off some of these side shoots. Put it in soil. We'll water it, and in a few weeks we should have 3 little plants that have rooted. As you may know, the sharing plant is all the rage right now. And right here I have a mother plant with lots of babies. And we're going to harvest some of the babies. And I definitely recommend waiting a few days. Don't do this to a just watered plant. I like working with a drier plant. What I like to do is get a lot of extra soil out of the way. The babies grow at the edge of the plant. Many times in nature, a baby plant will come right off the mother stem. This plant, the kids try to run away. And now the fun begins. You can start taking some of the babies, get a healthy handful of roots, and pull the plant off. Keep twirling and removing. Now you'll see this one came off with 2 plants. And if you're able to wrestle them apart, it'll come apart easily. You can see we've got lots of roots on both those plants. Keep going around. And again, we have another baby here. We have a big baby on this side. Now that's ready to be a mama. So let's plant the babies. We're going to refresh the mother, and then we're going to water everybody. So I'm going to get my pots ready. And I'm just using peat pots. You can use a regular pot, you can use a clay pot. As always, you want to make sure that you've got holes in the bottom because the babies need to grow properly. I'm also choosing to use an indoor potting mix that again does not have bark in it, so I won't have to worry about fungus gnats. And realize they've been growing in a large pot at the edge of a pot, so they're used to having some level of support. So if they kind of flop around the first few days, that's okay. They're just getting used to a new home. So from our mother plant, this is our new happy Pilea family. For the babies, we have something called a quick start planting and transplanting solution. Follow the directions, do half strength whenever you water the plants the next few weeks, and it'll give them a little extra nutrition and a little extra boost to start forming more roots. They already have some roots, but they need more to continue growing. Displaying your Pilea plants can be as exciting as purchasing them. Larger spaces may require a larger plant for proper proportion. Pilea plants look especially attractive whenever they're grouped together, just like these babies. You can also group a number of plants together and make a Pilea city. You can visit homedepot.com for the full project guide on Pileas. Click our playlist to watch more about indoor plant care. Be sure to subscribe here to be notified of our next video, and comment below with any questions or ask your local Home Depot Garden Center associate for more information.